The council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a massive crystal sphere. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others required different atmospheres and sat behind shimmering energy fields. The chamber was designed to accommodate all forms of life that had achieved space travel and earned a place in the Galactic Council. Tae-yang stood in the center of the chamber floor. He wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, dark blue with silver trim. His hair had started to gray at the temples. Lines marked his face from years of service, first as a soldier and now as a diplomat. Beside him stood Jiwoo, younger and sharper, her eyes constantly scanning the assembled aliens. She carried a datapad that contained information about every species present. Knowledge was their only weapon here. The chamber hummed with translation fields that converted every language into forms others could understand. The sound created an odd echo like standing in a cathedral made of whispers. Velroth, the council speaker, raised 3 of his forearms. His insectoid body gleamed under the chamber lights. His species had been part of the council for over 2,000 years. They were known for fairness and wisdom. Velroth's mandibles clicked in a pattern that the translators rendered as a call for silence. The murmuring stopped. "We gather today to discuss the human question," Velroth said. His voice buzzed through the translation field. 23 battles. 23 victories against the Void Swarm. No species in recorded history has achieved such success against this threat. Tae-yang kept his face neutral. He had learned that skill during his military years. Never show what you are thinking. Never give information freely. The Council acknowledges humanity's military effectiveness, Velroth continued. However, we have concerns. Deep concerns about what we have observed. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. It showed battlefield footage from the recent conflicts. Human soldiers in combat armor fought against the Void Swarm. Nightmarish creatures that looked like shadows given form and teeth. The footage showed chaos and violence. It showed humans dying, but it also showed something else. The humans were smiling, not just 1 or 2. Many of them. A soldier reloading his weapon while grinning. A pilot laughing over the communication channel as she performed an impossible maneuver. A squad leader making a joke while calling for artillery support. The footage continued, showing battle after battle. In each one, humans displayed expressions that other species found deeply disturbing. Morthax rose from his section. The crystalline being refracted light into rainbow patterns across the chamber floor. His species thought in pure mathematics and saw warfare as a series of calculated risks and logical decisions. "This behavior defies explanation," Morthax said. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "All sentient species experience fear when facing death. It is a survival instinct. Fear triggers caution. Caution increases survival rates. Yet humans display pleasure responses during combat. They exhibit joy while experiencing trauma. This suggests either severe psychological damage across their entire military, or something far more concerning." Other council members stirred. Tae-yang could feel the mood shifting. Fear. That was what he sensed in the chamber. These species had fought the Void Swarm and lost terribly. Some had lost entire colonies. Others had seen their fleets destroyed. Then humans arrived and started winning. And winning while smiling. Jiwoo leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "They are scared of us." Tae-yang nodded slightly. He had known this meeting was coming. The victories had been too easy, too one-sided. The galaxy was not used to seeing anyone defeat the swarm so decisively. A delegate from the thermal pools, a species that resembled floating jellyfish, spoke next. "My people have studied your battlefield recordings extensively. We have analyzed facial expressions, voice patterns, and body language. Ambassador Tae-yang, we must ask directly, why do your soldiers smile when facing death? Why do they laugh when their comrades fall? Why do they joke when terror should freeze them?" The question hung in the air. Every species in the chamber waited for his answer. Tae-yang looked around at the assembled aliens. He saw fear in those who could express it. He saw calculation in those who thought logically. He saw confusion in almost all of them. "Honorable Speaker," Tae-yang said, addressing Velroth formally, "this is not a question I can answer quickly or simply. To explain why humans smile in battle requires explaining who humans are. It requires context and history. I request 24 hours to prepare a proper response." Morthax's crystal structure pulsed with red light, indicating displeasure. A simple question requires a simple answer. Do humans feel fear or not? We feel fear, Tae-Yang said firmly. We feel it deeply. Then explain the smiles, Morthax demanded. Tae-Yang met the crystalline being's gaze. I will, but I will explain it properly. Give me 24 hours. Velroth's mandibles clicked in thought. The chamber waited. Finally, the speaker lowered 3 arms in a gesture of acceptance. The council grants your request. We reconvene at this time tomorrow. Use your time wisely, Ambassador. The council must understand. What we do not understand, we cannot trust. The session ended. The holographic displays faded. Delegates began filing out through various exits, each designed for different forms of biology. Tae-Yang and Jiwoo remained standing in the center until the chamber emptied. That went badly, Jiwoo said quietly. It went exactly as expected, Tae-Yang replied. They have seen what humans can do. Now they need to know why we can do it. They walked toward the human delegation's exit. The corridor beyond was sized for human proportions, a small comfort in the massive alien structure. Their footsteps echoed off the metallic walls. The footage they showed, Jiwoo said. I recognize some of those soldiers. I served with them before I transferred to Diplomatic Corps. Did they smile? Tae-Yang asked. Yes, we all did. It was just what you did, she paused. But seeing it from outside, through alien eyes, I understand why they are disturbed. We look insane. Tae-Yang stopped walking and turned to face her. Do you think we are insane? Jiwoo considered the question seriously. No, I think we are human. But I am not sure I can explain the difference to species who have never been human. That is what we have 24 hours to figure out, Tae-Yang said. Contact our military liaisons. I need to speak with soldiers who were in those battles. I need to speak with the ones who smiled. What are you looking for? The truth, Tae-Yang said. They asked why we smile in battle. I need to give them an answer that will not start a war. They resumed walking. Behind them, the council chamber remained dark and empty. But tomorrow it would fill again, and the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy would depend on one question. Why did humans smile when facing death? Tae-Yang had fought in enough battles to know his own answer. But knowing it for himself and explaining it to 47 alien species were very different challenges. He had faced enemy fire without flinching. He had led soldiers into impossible situations. But tomorrow might be the hardest battle of his life, and he would have to fight it with nothing but words. The human quarters on Terminus Prime were modest compared to the Grand Council chamber. 3 connected rooms with basic furniture and communication equipment. A window showed the planet below, a world deliberately kept neutral and uninhabited, except for the diplomatic station above it. Tae-Yang sat at a desk covered with data pads and holographic displays. Jiwoo had spent the last 3 hours arranging communication links with various human military personnel. Now the first call was ready. The hologram flickered to life. A man in marine combat fatigues appeared, standing in what looked like a ship's barracks. Dong-Hyun had a face like weathered leather, scarred and hard. His service record showed 15 major engagements against the Void Swarm. He had survived them all. Sergeant Dong-Hyun, Tae-Yang said formally. Thank you for making time for this call. Sir? Dong-Hyun's salute was crisp despite the casual setting. Old habits. They said this was important. It is. The Galactic Council wants to know why human soldiers smile during combat. I need your honest answer. When you are in battle, when the enemy is trying to kill you, why do you smile? Dong-Hyun was quiet for a moment. His eyes looked past the camera, remembering. You have been in combat, sir. You know the feeling. Everything is trying to kill you. The noise is so loud you cannot think. You can smell blood and burnt metal. Your hands shake no matter how much training you have. Yes, Tae-Yang said. I remember. Well, if I let that fear show, my whole squad sees it. They are looking at me because I am their sergeant. If I am scared, they become more scared. Fear spreads like a disease. But if I smile, if I crack a joke, suddenly they remember something important. What do they remember? That they are still alive. That we are still in this together. That we have not given up. Dong-Hyun's scarred face softened slightly. I smile because I need them to keep fighting. And they need me to show them it is possible to keep fighting. The smile is not about feeling good, sir. It is about surviving the next 5 minutes. Tae-Yang nodded slowly. Thank you, Sergeant. The hologram faded. Jiwoo immediately brought up the next call. A young woman appeared wearing a pilot's flight suit. Haewon looked barely old enough to be in the military. but her record showed 12 confirmed kills against swarm fighter organisms. She was known among her squadron for singing during dogfights. Lieutenant Heywan, Tae Yang said, "The Council has questions about human behavior in combat, specifically about singing. Your flight recorder shows you singing during your last engagement." Heywan grinned, unashamed. "Yes, sir. I was singing an old song my grandmother taught me." "Why?" "Because my targeting system was damaged. My left engine was failing. I had 3 swarm fighters on my tail and my wingman was already dead." She said it matter-of-factly, as if describing the weather. If I thought about all that, I would freeze. My hands would lock on the controls. So I sang instead. How does singing help? It gives my brain something to do besides panic. The fear is still there, sir. It never goes away. But if I am concentrating on remembering the words, on keeping the rhythm, then I'm not concentrating on how I'm about to die. And that split second of not panicking is enough time to make the right move. And you made the right move. "I am still here," Heywan said simply. "The swarm fighters are not." After she disconnected, Tae-Yang leaned back in his chair. Jiwoo was watching him carefully. "Are you finding what you need?" she asked. "I am finding pieces, but I need to understand the whole picture." He pulled up another file. "Get me Byung-ho, the medical officer." The next hologram showed a man in a field hospital. Behind him, medics moved between beds where wounded soldiers recovered. Byung-ho had kind eyes behind his medical visor, but his hands showed burn scars from working in combat zones. "Ambassador," Byung-ho said, "I heard about the council meeting. This is about the footage, correct?" "Yes. I need to understand why medical personnel use humor in crisis situations. Your reports mention making jokes while treating critically wounded soldiers." Byung-ho nodded. "You cannot understand medicine without understanding the patient's mind, sir. When someone is badly hurt, their body goes into shock. The mind starts shutting down. If they lose hope, they stop fighting. The body gives up. So you make jokes. I keep them talking. I keep them engaged. If I can make a wounded Marine laugh even just a little, it means their mind is still working. It means they have not given up. I have seen soldiers survive impossible wounds because they stayed conscious and fighting. And I have seen lighter wounds become fatal because the patient lost hope." Tae-Yang absorbed this. "So the humor is medical treatment. The humor is survival, sir. For them and for me. If I let myself think about the fact that this 19-year-old kid might die on my operating table, my hands might shake. I cannot afford shaking hands." The calls continued for hours. Jiwoo brought him coffee at some point, earth-imported and expensive. He barely tasted it. Each soldier, pilot, and officer told a similar story. The smiles were not from joy. The laughter was not from happiness. They were tools for survival. Eventually, Jiwoo brought up historical files on her datapad. "I have been researching human military history. This behavior goes back centuries." She showed him footage from Earth's old wars, soldiers singing in trenches during the First World War, pilots joking over radio during the Second World War, Marines trading insults during modern conflicts. The pattern repeated across generations and cultures. "It is not new," Tae-Yang said. "No, it is fundamentally human." Jiwoo highlighted a psychological study. "I found research from before we made contact with aliens. Studies on combat stress and coping mechanisms. Humans use humor to process trauma. We use it to maintain social bonds under pressure. We use it to function when logic says we should break." Tae-Yang read through the study. The science was complex, but the conclusion was clear. Human psychology was built differently than most other species. Fear did not freeze humans the same way. Instead, humans had evolved multiple mechanisms to function despite fear. "The other species do not have this," Jiwoo said quietly. "When they are scared, they become cautious. They retreat. They make careful decisions. That is why the Void Swarm has been so effective against them. The swarm is terrifying, so the other species cannot fight effectively while feeling terror. But humans can," Tae-Yang finished. "We do not stop being scared. We just keep moving anyway." Tae-Yang stood and walked to the window. The planet below turned slowly, peaceful and empty. Tomorrow he would stand in front of the council again. They wanted to understand why humans smiled in battle. Now he knew the answer. The hard part would be making them understand that the smile was not the strength. The strength was everything behind the smile. The fear that humans felt and fought through. The bonds between soldiers that humor maintained. The desperate need to stay sane in insane situations. Humans smiled in battle because they were terrified, and they had learned over thousands of years of war that smiling was how they survived terror. "We need to show them the truth," Tai Yang said. "Not just explain it. How?" He turned from the window. The footage they showed only displayed smiles. "Tomorrow I need to show them what those smiles are hiding." Jiwoo understood immediately. That could be dangerous. If they see how scared we really are, then they will understand that courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite fear. Tai Yang met her eyes. We cannot hide what we are. We can only help them understand it. Outside the window, stars glittered like distant hope. Tomorrow, humanity's fate would be decided by how well they could explain the inexplicable. How could you make alien species understand something that was purely, fundamentally human? Taeyang did not know if it was possible, but he had 24 hours to try. The council chamber filled with representatives again. Taeyang noticed the seating arrangement had changed slightly. Species that considered themselves allies sat closer together. Those who feared humanity had moved their sections back, putting distance between themselves and the chamber floor where he would speak. Velroth called the session to order with the same gesture as before. 3 arms raised, mandibles clicking. The translation fields hummed to life. "Ambassador Taeyang," the speaker said, "the council awaits your explanation. Why do humans smile in battle?" Taeyang walked to the center of the chamber floor. Jiwoo remained at the human delegation section, her datapad ready to provide supporting information if needed. They had worked through the night preparing this presentation. Everything depended on the next hour. "Honorable Speaker, esteemed council members," Taeyang began. "You asked a simple question. I must give you a complex answer because the truth is not simple." He activated his own holographic display. Instead of showing battle footage, it showed a graph. Brain activity patterns. This is a human brain during combat. These red areas show fear response. You can see the fear centers are extremely active. He paused. "We are terrified." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Morthax's crystalline form pulsed with confused yellow light. "But if humans are terrified," a delegate called out, "how do you function? Fear should impair performance." "It does impair performance," Taeyang agreed. "Which is why we developed coping mechanisms. Humans smile in battle because we are terrified, not in spite of it." He changed the display to show footage from yesterday's interviews. Dong-Hyun's scarred face appeared, speaking about how fear spreads through a unit. This sergeant explained that his smile prevents fear from spreading to his soldiers. The smile is not real happiness. It is a signal. It tells his squad that they can keep going. More footage played. Haewon singing in her damaged fighter. Byung-ho making jokes while operating on wounded Marines. Each clip showed the context that yesterday's presentation had lacked. The smile came with shaking hands. The laughter came with voices tight with stress. The jokes came while people were dying. "Humans use humor as a weapon against fear," Taeyang said. "Not against the enemy, but against our own psychology. We are not fearless. We are perhaps the most fear-filled species in this chamber. But we learned to function anyway." Jiwoo stood and activated her datapad. Supporting information appeared on subsidiary displays around the chamber. Graphs, studies, historical records. "Human evolution shaped us for persistence," Jiwoo said. Her voice was steady and professional. "On Earth, humans were not the strongest predators. We were not the fastest. We survived through endurance and adaptability. We learned to keep going when other animals would stop. This shaped our psychology," Taeyang continued. "When humans feel fear, we do not freeze as completely as other species. We evolved to feel fear and keep moving, to be terrified and still hunt, to face danger and still protect our young." He showed footage from Earth's history. Ancient humans hunting animals much larger than themselves. Not through strength, but through patience and cooperation, chasing prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. "We are persistence hunters," Taeyang said. "We do not give up even when logic says we should." This trait carried into our warfare, into our culture, into how we face any challenge. Morthax rose from his section. "This is simply biological determinism. You claim to be shaped by evolution, but all species are shaped by evolution. Why would this make humans unique?" "Because of what we were shaped for," Taeyang answered. "Most species evolved to be cautious. Caution keeps you alive. But humans evolved in an environment where caution was not enough. We had to take risks. We had to keep going even when exhausted, even when injured, even when terrified. The humans who gave up died. The ones who persisted survived and had children. He pulled up more data, genetic markers, psychological profiles, comparative biology. Every species here has fear responses, Jiwoo added. But human fear responses are linked to different parts of the brain than most species. When we are scared, we do not just feel the need to flee or freeze. We also feel anger, defiance, the need to keep fighting. A new display showed brain scans from multiple species during fear responses. The human scans were noticeably different. Fear centers activated alongside aggression centers and social bonding centers. When humans face death together, Taeyang said, our brains release chemicals that strengthen social bonds. The more danger we share, the closer we become. This is why human military units develop such intense loyalty. War makes us more connected, not less. And the smiling? Velroth asked. How does this explain the expressions of joy? Taeyang took a breath. This was the crucial part. The smiles are not joy. They are defiance. When a human smiles in battle, they are telling death itself that it has not won yet. They are telling their comrades to stay strong. They are telling themselves that they can endure 5 more minutes. He showed close-up footage of human faces during combat. When enhanced and slowed down, the smiles looked different. Tight. Forced. The eyes showed terror even when the mouth smiled. We smile because we are afraid. We smile so we can keep fighting despite being afraid. We smile because giving in to fear means death and we refuse to die quietly. The chamber was silent. Taeyang could feel the mood shifting, but he could not tell which direction it was moving. You have fought the Void Swarm, he continued. You know what they are. They are terror made physical. They are nightmares with teeth. Every species that faces them feels overwhelming fear. Most species, when they feel that fear, become paralyzed. They make careful decisions. They retreat. They call for backup. This is logical. This is sensible. But humans do not do this, Morthax stated. No. When humans face the swarm, we feel the same terror you do. But our response is different. We feel the fear and then we get angry. We feel the terror and then we laugh at it. Not because we are insane, but because defiance is how we survive. Jiwoo brought up historical quotes on the displays, words from human warriors throughout history. I have not yet begun to fight. Nuts. Come and take them. Short, defiant statements made in desperate situations. This is the human pattern, Taeyang said. When we should surrender, we resist. When we should flee, we attack. When we should despair, we laugh. It is not logical. It is not sensible. But it is how humans survived on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or optical sensors of as many representatives as he could. You asked why humans smile in battle. The answer is simple and terrible. We smile because we are terrified, and we refuse to let terror win. We smile because our species learned long ago that the alternative to fighting is extinction. We smile because even when facing death, we choose to face it as humans together, with our humanity intact. The holographic displays faded. Taeyang stood alone in the center of the chamber floor. He had given them the truth. Now they had to decide what to do with it. Velroth's mandibles clicked slowly, processing what had been said. Other council members conferred with their delegations. The chamber filled with the sound of whispered conversations in dozens of languages. Finally, Velroth spoke. The council must discuss this matter. We will take a brief recess. Taeyang bowed and returned to the human section. Jiwoo met him there. You did well, she said quietly. We will see, Taeyang replied. Understanding us and accepting us are different things. They waited while the council debated humanity's fate. The recess lasted 30 minutes. Taeyang watched through the transparent sections of the chamber as groups of aliens gathered inside corridors. He could not hear what they were saying, but body language transcended species. Some delegations gestured aggressively. Others huddled together as if seeking protection. They are afraid, Jiwoo said, following his gaze. I showed them that humans are afraid. Now they are afraid of what species can function while terrified. Taeyang shook his head. I may have made things worse. The council members began returning to their sections. Velroth took his position at the speaker's podium. His mandibles clicked for order, but the chamber remained unsettled. Unusual for the normally disciplined council. The session resumes, Velroth announced. The council has heard humanity's explanation. Now we must discuss its implications. Morthax rose immediately. His crystalline structure pulsed with red light, the color of alarm and danger among his species. "I must speak plainly," Morthax said. "Ambassador Te Yang has confirmed our worst fears. Humans are not simply effective warriors. They are weaponized psychology. They are a species that has turned self-deception into an evolutionary advantage." Several council members made sounds of agreement. Te Yang felt his stomach tighten. "Consider what we have learned," Morthax continued. "Humans feel terror but ignore it. They know they should retreat but attack instead. They face certain death while smiling. This is not courage. This is a fundamental disconnect between rational thought and action." "That is not what I said," Te Yang began, but Morthax spoke over him. "You said humans refuse to let fear win. But fear exists to keep beings alive. Fear is rational response to danger. A species that overrides this response at a biological level is dangerous, not just to enemies but to everyone." More sounds of agreement. A delegate from the thermal pools added, "How can we coexist with a species that does not respond to danger normally? How can we predict their actions if they do not follow logical patterns?" Te Yang looked at Jiwoo. She was already pulling up information on her datapad, but her face showed concern. This was spiraling badly. Velroth tried to restore order. Ambassador Te Yang explained that human psychology evolved for survival, not for warfare. The same traits that make them effective soldiers also make them effective explorers, traders, and diplomats. Do they? Morthax challenged. Or have we invited a species of barely controlled berserkers into our council? Today they fight the Void Swarm. Tomorrow will they smile as they fight us? "We have no hostile intentions," Te Yang said firmly. "Humanity seeks peaceful cooperation with all species." "So you say while your military defeats enemies that have destroyed civilizations? So you say while explaining that your species is biologically driven to fight rather than flee?" Morthax's crystalline form flashed with aggressive red pulses. "The Council must consider restrictions on human military expansion. Perhaps on human expansion generally." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species supported Morthax's position. Others argued against it. A few, like Velroth's people, tried to mediate. But the overall mood was clear. Fear had taken root. Jiwoo leaned close to Tai Yang. "We need Suno-K." Suno-K was humanity's xenosociologist consultant. She had spent 50 years studying alien cultures and psychology. She was back in the human quarters monitoring the session remotely. Jiwoo sent an urgent message on her datapad. "The council calls for a vote," Velroth announced, trying to impose structure on the chaos. "A motion has been proposed to restrict human military operations to defensive actions only, and to limit human colonial expansion pending further study." "This is punishment for being effective allies," Te Yang protested. "We have fought and died defending council space against the swarm. And we are grateful," Velroth said. His tone suggested he personally disagreed with the motion, but was bound by council procedure. "But the council must consider long-term implications. We must ensure galactic stability." The vote would happen within the hour. Te Yang felt control slipping away. He had explained why humans smiled in battle, but the explanation had only deepened the council's fear. They understood humans now, but understanding made them want to cage humanity rather than embrace it. Jiwoo's datapad chimed. Sunok had responded. Te Yang read the message quickly. "You showed them our strength. Now show them our vulnerability. They need to understand not just how we fight, but why we fight." Te Yang looked up at the debating council. They saw humans as weapons, as something dangerous that needed to be controlled. They saw the smile and the defiance and the refusal to surrender. But they did not see what was behind it all. They did not see what humans were really fighting for. "I request permission to make one final statement before the vote," Te Yang said, his voice cutting through the debate. Velroth's mandibles clicked with what might have been relief or concern. "The council recognizes Ambassador Te Yang." Te Yang walked back to the center of the chamber floor. He felt every alien eye watching him. This was his last chance. He had shown them humanity's strength. Now he needed to show them something else. "Council members," he began, "you are right to be concerned. You are right to question whether humanity can be trusted. We are a strange species by your standards. We do things that seem insane. We smile in battle. We laugh at death. We fight when we should flee." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "But you have not asked the most important question. You asked why we smile. You did not ask why we fight." Morthax's crystalline structure pulsed with impatient orange light. Survival, territory, resources. All species fight for these things. No, Taeyang said quietly. That is not why humans fight. That is not why we smile in the face of death. He activated his holographic display one more time. But instead of showing battle footage or brain scans, he showed something simple. A photograph, a human child. A boy, maybe 8 years old, smiling at the camera. Behind him was a garden on Earth, flowers blooming under a blue sky. This is Kyung-soo, Taeyang said. He is the nephew of Byung-ho, the medical officer you saw earlier. Before Byung-ho deployed to fight the Void Swarm, Kyung-soo recorded a message for him. With permission from the family, I would like to share that message. The hologram changed. The photograph became a video. Kyung-soo stood in the garden, clearly uncomfortable being recorded. He looked directly at the camera with a child's earnest seriousness. Uncle Byung-ho, the boy said, Mom says you are going away to fight bad things in space. She says it is dangerous. I want you to be safe. I want you to come home. The boy shifted his weight, looking down for a moment. When he looked back up, his eyes were worried. Mom also says it is okay to be scared. She says brave people are still scared, but they do it anyway. So it is okay if you are scared, Uncle. You can still be brave. Then Kyung-soo smiled. Not a big smile, not a confident smile. A small, hopeful smile. The smile of a child who wanted to believe everything would be all right. Come home safe, Uncle. I love you. The hologram froze on that smile. That small, vulnerable, hopeful expression on a child's face. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Taeyang looked around at the assembled aliens. You asked why humans smile in battle. This is why. Every soldier who smiled in that footage was thinking of someone like Kyung-soo. Someone back home waiting for them. Someone who needed them to come back. His voice was steady but carried weight that had nothing to do with volume. We do not smile because we are weapons. We smile because we refuse to let war take away our humanity. We smile because somewhere, a child is waiting for their parent to come home. A partner is hoping to see their loved one again. A friend expects to share another meal. He let the image of Kyung-soo remain on the display. You fear what we are. I understand. But what we are is a species that will face any terror, endure any pain, to protect what we love. The smile is not about joy. It is about hope. Hope that we will see another sunrise. Hope that we will return to the people waiting for us. Hope that the universe, despite all its darkness, still has room for a child playing in a garden. Taeyang took a deep breath. You can restrict us. You can limit us. You can try to control us. But you cannot take away what makes us human. And what makes us human is not our ability to fight. It is our refusal to give up on hope even when hope seems foolish. The chamber remained silent. Even Morthax's crystalline structure had gone neutral. No color pulsing through it. They were all looking at the hologram, at a human child smiling in a garden, unaware that his simple message would be shared with 47 alien species. Felroth was the first to move. His forearms lowered slowly, a gesture of contemplation among his species. His mandibles clicked in a pattern that translators rendered as thoughtful speech. A child, Felroth said. You defend your answer with a child. I defend nothing, Taeyang replied. I simply answer your question honestly. Why do humans smile in battle? Because somewhere, a child waits for us to come home. Because we fight for the people who cannot fight. Because love is stronger than fear. Morthax's crystalline structure finally pulsed with color again, but it was not the aggressive red from before. Blue light, the color of processing and recalculation, rippled through his form. This is emotional manipulation, Morthax said, but his voice lacked the certainty from earlier. You show us a child to generate sympathy. I show you a child because children are the answer to your question, Taeyang said. Every species here has young. Every species here has families. Humans are not unique in having things worth protecting. We are only unique in how far we will go to protect them. A delegate from the thermal pools, the floating jellyfish-like species, spoke. Our young are precious to us. We keep them safe in our home pools. We do not expose them to danger. Neither do we, Taeyang said. That is why we go to war. To keep the danger away from them. To ensure they can play in gardens and smile without fear. He gestured to the hologram still showing Kyung-soo's frozen smile. This boy does not know about the Void Swarm. He does not know about the battles his uncle fought. He should not have to know. That is what we fight for. Jiwoo stood and added her voice. When Byung-ho was treating wounded soldiers while making jokes, do you know what he was thinking about? His nephew. Coming home to see Kyung-soo again. The jokes were not about making light of war. They were about refusing to let war destroy his ability to be an uncle who could still laugh and play. But you are so effective at war, another delegate said. You win battles that should be impossible to win. Because we have more to lose, Tae-yang answered. Every species here has suffered losses to the Void Swarm. Colonies destroyed, ships lost, lives ended. But perhaps humans fight more desperately because we remember almost losing everything. He pulled up historical data from Earth. Images of mushroom clouds, cities in ruins, weapons capable of destroying all human civilization. 400 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We created weapons that could end our species. We came within minutes of using them. We stood on the edge of extinction not because of aliens or monsters, but because of our own fear and anger. The council members watched the historical footage. Earth's near apocalypse played out in accelerated time. We survived by choice, Tae-yang said. By choosing to step back from that edge. By choosing hope over fear. By remembering what we would lose if we gave in to despair. Every human alive today is a descendant of people who chose hope when extinction was easier. That history makes you more dangerous, not less, Morthax pointed out. You nearly destroyed yourselves. You created weapons of mass extinction. Yes, Tae-yang agreed. And we chose not to use them. We chose survival. We chose our children's future over our present anger. That choice defines humanity more than our weapons ever could. Velroth raised 3 arms again, calling for attention. The council must consider this new information. Ambassador Tae-yang has shown us not just how humans fight, but why they fight. We must deliberate on whether this changes our decision. It does not matter why they fight, Morthax insisted, but his tone had lost its aggressive edge. They are still effective at violence. All species can be violent, Tae-yang said. But not all species remember why peace matters. Humans smile in battle because we remember what we are fighting to return to. We laugh at death because we refuse to let death have the final word. We make jokes in desperate situations because we are desperately trying to stay human, to keep the part of us that can still love and hope and dream. He looked directly at Morthax. You see weapons when you look at us, I understand. But weapons do not cry when they return home. Weapons do not record messages for their nephews. Weapons do not plant gardens and hope to see them bloom. We are not weapons. We are people who will do whatever it takes to protect the people we love. The hologram of Kyung-soo still hung in the center of the chamber. The boy's small smile seemed to fill the space more effectively than any battle footage could. If you vote to restrict humanity, Tae-yang said quietly, I will accept that decision. We will abide by council law. But know this. As long as species like that boy exist, as long as there are children who deserve to play in gardens without fear, humans will find a way to protect them. That is not a threat. It is simply who we are. Velroth clicked his mandibles. The council will now vote on the proposed motion to restrict human military and colonial expansion. The voting display activated. Each council member's section lit up with their choice. Green for rejecting the motion. Red for supporting it. Yellow for abstaining. The colors began appearing one by one. The thermal pools voted green. Rejection. Morthax's crystalline people voted red. Support. More votes appeared. The chamber filled with colored light as 47 species made their choices. Tae-yang watched without expression, though his heart pounded. Jiwoo stood beside him, tense. The final vote appeared. Velroth's mandibles clicked as he read the results. The motion fails. 29 votes against, 15 in support, 3 abstentions. Humanity will not be restricted. Tae-yang felt relief wash through him, but he kept his face neutral. This was not a time for celebration. The council had been genuinely afraid. That fear had not completely vanished. However, Velroth continued, this council recognizes that today's discussion has revealed significant misunderstandings between humanity and other species. We propose a new measure. Taeyang tensed again. A new measure could still be problematic. The Council offers humanity a permanent seat on this body, Velroth said. With full voting rights and responsibilities, we believe that continued dialogue is necessary. We must understand each other better. Taeyang bowed deeply. Humanity accepts this honor and responsibility. Morthax rose from his section. For a moment, Taeyang worried the crystalline being would protest. But Morthax simply said, I withdraw my earlier characterization of humans as weapons. I do not fully understand your species, Ambassador, but I am beginning to see that understanding may be more valuable than fear. Thank you, Taeyang said simply. The session ended. Council members began filing out. But many stopped by the human section first. The thermal pool's delegate floated close. That child, she said. Kyung-soo, you will tell him that his message mattered? I will, Taeyang promised. Tell him that his uncle's smile and all human smiles in battle make more sense to us now. Other delegates approached with similar sentiments. Not all of them. Some still left quickly, clearly uncertain about humanity, but more stopped than Taeyang had expected. The fear had not disappeared, but it had been joined by understanding. Eventually, the chamber emptied except for Taeyang and Jiwoo. They stood in the center of the floor where Kyung-soo's hologram had been displayed. We did it, Jiwoo said. We did not do it alone, Taeyang replied. He pulled out his personal communicator. I need to send a message. He composed a brief note and sent it to Byung-ho, who would pass it along to his family. The message was simple. To Kyung-soo, your uncle asked me to thank you. Your message helped many people understand something important. You told your uncle it was okay to be scared but brave anyway. That message reached all the way to the stars. You are a good nephew. Your uncle will come home to you. Jiwoo read over his shoulder. You think Byung-ho will survive his deployment? I think he will fight very hard to get home to that boy, Taeyang said. And if there is one thing I have learned about humans, it is that we are very good at fighting for what we love. They walked toward the exit together. Behind them, the council chamber began to darken as its systems powered down. Tomorrow it would fill again with representatives from across the galaxy. But now it would include a permanent human voice. The council asked why humans smile in battle, Jiwoo said as they entered the corridor. What do you think they learned? Taeyang considered the question. They had traveled through explanations of psychology, evolution, and military tactics. They had shown brain scans and historical records, but in the end, the answer had been simple. They learned that humans smile because we remember what we are fighting for. Because hope is our weapon against despair. Because somewhere a child is waiting in a garden. And they learned that makes us trustworthy? They learned that makes us human. Trustworthiness will come with time. Taeyang smiled, a real smile this time, not the forced smile of battle. But they took the first step. They chose understanding over fear. That is all we can ask. Outside the windows, stars glittered in the darkness of space. Among those stars were worlds being defended against the Void Swarm. Human soldiers fought there even now, smiling through their fear. And on Earth, in a garden under a blue sky, a boy named Kyung-soo played, unaware that his simple message had changed the course of galactic history. The meeting had ended, but humanity's story in the stars was just beginning, and it would be written not with weapons or violence but with the same thing that had always defined humanity, the stubborn, unreasonable, beautiful refusal to surrender hope. Even when facing the dark, especially when facing the dark, humans would smile, not because they were fearless, but because they remembered what they were fighting to protect. Not because war was easy, but because peace was worth any price. The council had asked their question. Humanity had given their answer. And in a small way, the galaxy had become a little less frightening, a little more understandable, all because a child smiled in a garden and told his uncle to be brave.